Windows 11 starts after it finishes installing, and there's no bloatware, no ads, no Microsoft Edge, no annoying updates. Just the Windows 11 that we should have gotten from the start. That's what we're building in this video, and we're doing it faster than you've ever set up Windows before. I'll also show you at the end a tool to install all your must-have apps in minutes. So here's how we'll do it. We'll use a site called Schneegen's Auto Unattended Generator. It lets you pre-configure everything before you even install Windows. You won't have to install separate third-party tools to debloat or tweak Windows further. First things first, open your browser and search for download Windows 11. Click this link, scroll down, download a Windows 11 disk image. Click confirm, select the product language and click confirm. Now click the download button. We let our Windows image download while we customize it with Schneegen's. Search for Schneegen's Auto Unattended and click this link. I'll leave all the links I've used in the video description. We're going to start with region and language settings. I'll keep my Windows display language at English. This is the language that is used throughout the US. It must match the language of your Windows ISO file, so the same language that you've chosen here. Next, we'll set the language that you use to type with using your keyboard. I'll keep the language at English and change the keyboard layout to French AZERTY. This is because I have a keyboard that uses the AZERTY layout. And because I sometimes need to type in Arabic, I'll set it as my second language. I'll use the Arabic 102 AZERTY layout for the same reason. Now for the home location and device setup region, I highly recommend that you choose any European country, like Ireland, France, or Germany. This is because it will enable the DMA mode on your device. If you haven't heard about it, Digital Markets Act, or DMA in short, forces Microsoft by European law to give users more control over their computers. It allows them, for example, to uninstall Microsoft apps like Microsoft Edge, Bing, and OneDrive. It allows them to use third-party search providers in Windows search. So instead of web searches always opening in Bing, you can change them to open in Google or DuckDuckGo, for example. It also makes it easier to set default apps instead of favoring Microsoft services. That's why I highly recommend setting your home location to a European country. We will change it back to your original home location after we are done installing Windows. Whenever you see interactively in this form, it means you will set the options during the Windows setup. In almost all cases, doing it that way is worse. Now we're done with languages. For the processor architectures, choose the one that your CPU uses. Moving on to setup settings. If you have a computer with old hardware that is not compatible with Windows 11, you can check this option to install it anyway. Since my computer has all the requirements, I'll leave this unchecked. You can allow Windows 11 to be installed without internet connection. You do not need this option if you just want to create a local offline user account. We'll do that later in the form. This option is more advanced, so I'll skip it. Next, you can hide any PowerShell windows during Windows setup. Read this and decide for yourself if you want to do that. I'm going to leave it unchecked. Next, for keep sensitive files, we'll keep files that may contain sensitive data. I don't want that, so I'll keep it unchecked. Now moving on to computer name. You can either let Windows generate a random computer name or choose a computer name yourself. And that's what I'm going to do. The third option is useful if you're setting up multiple computers at once, but you're probably not, so I'll skip it. Next up is Compact OS. Compact OS compresses the core operating system files to save disk space. It's intended for devices with limited storage. I'm going to let Windows decide whether to use Compact OS. Next up is time zone. Since my language and region settings do not reflect my actual location, I'm going to set my time zone explicitly. You can tell your time zone with a Google search. Mine is UTC+1. Next up is partitioning and formatting. For this section, I will choose to partition the disk interactively during Windows setup. This is because if I do it from here, I might mess things up. So I'll skip all of this. For the Windows edition, you can use a generic product key which will install Windows but will not activate it. I recommend you install Windows Pro Edition because it will unlock more customizations that's exclusive to the Pro Edition. You can also enter your own product key. You can do it interactively during Windows setup, or if your computer came pre-installed with Windows, you can use the same license by choosing this option. Next, for the source image, leave it at default, and the same thing with Windows PE operation. Next is user accounts. This is how to create a local account. I'll remove the second account and then change this account name to my name. And for the password, if you want to automatically log in to your computer, leave this blank, but it will be less secure that way. So for me, I'll create a password. Leave first logon at the default setting. Now you can also add a local offline account interactively during Windows setup, but I don't recommend it because Microsoft is making it harder to create local accounts by removing workarounds like the bypass NRO command. So doing it this way is one of the few ways that still work. Next up is password expiration. For more security, you can use the Windows default, which will make your passwords expire after 42 days. But I find resetting my password very annoying, so I'll keep it set at passwords do not expire. Next, for account lockout policy, you can just leave it at default, which will lock out an account after 10 failed logon attempts within 10 minutes. After that, the account is unlocked automatically. Now moving on to File Explorer tweaks. In File Explorer, you can choose to show hidden items, which are these folders or files that appear half transparent. If you want to show them by default, choose Hide Protected Operating System Files, which will only hide system files but show hidden files. Or you can show all files, which will show both hidden and system files. I will choose to only show hidden files. Next, you can choose to always show file extensions, which is this option here. Always showing file extensions enhances security by preventing malware disguised as harmless files, and it improves file management by making it easier to identify file types. If you don't like the default Windows 11 context menu and want to always use this one, check this option. If you want File Explorer to open to this page when it first launches, instead of this one, check this option. The final option will show End Task command when you right-click taskbar items. It's useful to force quit an app that becomes unresponsive and doesn't want to be closed. I'm going to enable it since I find it very useful. Now moving on to Start menu and taskbar. You can customize how the search box appears in the taskbar, either full, icon and label, icon, or hide. I'm going to choose to hide it since I can search just by typing in the Start menu. I don't need a separate icon. Here you can choose which icons are pinned in the taskbar. By default, I think there's File Explorer and Microsoft Edge. I'm going to remove all icons and set my own pinned apps later. Next, you can disable widgets, which is this pane right here, but I'm going to keep it because I like the small weather widget in the taskbar. I'm going to choose left align the taskbar in Windows 11 and hide the task view button from the taskbar, which is this button. Always show all tray icons will make these icons appear here instead of hidden in this flyout, but I like to make most of them hidden for more organization. The final option is do not show Bing results when searching in the Start menu or the search box. It will stop showing these web results. Here, you can configure the pins that are initially shown in the Windows 11 Start menu. You can either use default pins or remove all pins. I'm going to choose to remove all pins. Moving on to system tweaks. You can disable Windows Defender, which I don't recommend because your system will be less secure. You can choose to disable Windows Update, which I also don't recommend. We'll configure Windows updates after we're done installing Windows to make it less annoying. Next, you can disable User Account Control. User Account Control is a security feature that prevents unauthorized changes to your PC by prompting you for approval when a program needs administrator-level permissions. Basically, it's these pop-ups that appear whenever you're making changes to your device. I find these annoying, so I'll disable UAC. Next is disable Smart App Control. It's another security feature that blocks malicious, untrusted, or potentially unwanted apps from running on your device. In my experience, I find that it always gets triggered on apps that are perfectly clean. It makes a lot of false positives, so I'm going to disable it. Next is disable Smart Screen in Windows and Edge. It's a built-in security feature that protects against dangerous websites and malicious downloads by analyzing sites and files in real time. I find it annoying because it falsely flags files that are perfectly fine, so I'll disable it. Next is disable Fast Startup. It's a feature that helps your computer start faster. I don't find that it actually makes a difference, so I'll disable it. If you have a laptop, you might want to keep this enabled. Next is disable System Protection and System Restore. It's this feature that allows you to create restore points so that you can go back to a previous restore point if you encounter any issues. I do not recommend you disable it at all. I recommend you enable this option for your convenience, because you'll have to enable it at some point anyway. For these two options, if you don't know what they mean, just ignore them. Next is allow execution of PowerShell script files. It allows the execution of unsigned .ps1 files. I'm going to enable it. Next is do not update last access timestamp. This will stop the date accessed property from updating. Normally, when you access a folder or file, it will change to the date that you've accessed it. But if you check this option, it will stop updating. In turn, it can improve file system performance. Next, prevent Windows Update from rebooting your computer. If you find that Windows Update restarts your system when you're still working on your computer, check this option to prevent that. With this on, you'll have to restart Windows manually to apply updates. Next, you can turn off system sounds. I recommend you enable this option, which will disable app suggestions to prevent the silent download and installation of suggested apps. Next, you can enable prevent device encryption, which will disable BitLocker. BitLocker is an encryption feature in Windows that protects data by encrypting entire drives to prevent unauthorized access to data on an offline disk. You should use Windows BitLocker if you want to protect your data from being accessed if your device is lost or stolen. This is especially useful if you use a laptop or a computer in a shared environment. Since I use a desktop computer at home, I'm going to prevent device encryption. If you are not going to use Edge, check Hide Edge First Run Experience and disable Edge Startup Boost and background mode. If you didn't choose a European country for your home location, you can check this option to make Edge uninstallable even outside the European Economic Area. This is a beta feature, so use at your own risk. I recommend you just use the home location method because it's easier and it's a built-in feature. Next, if you are going to be gaming on your computer, you should disable the enhanced pointer precision mouse setting. This will make your mouse move at a linear speed. It's this option here. Since I won't be gaming, I'll keep enhanced pointer precision. Next, you can delete empty windows.old folder. The windows.old folder is a backup of your previous Windows installation created after an upgrade. If it's empty, it has no use, so just check this option to delete it. Next, audit process creation events will make Windows write an event to the security log each time a new process is created. This is useful for troubleshooting errors later on. Next up is visual effects. It's the same thing as this. I don't like how the adjust for best performance option looks. I use adjust for best appearance and I just disable peek. Peek allows you to look into a window by hovering over its thumbnail. I'm going to reflect the same settings here. Next up, desktop icons. I'm going to show downloads, recycle bin, and this PC. For the folders on start, I'm going to show downloads and settings. I'm going to skip virtual machine support because I'm not going to be using a VM. I'm going to skip Wi-Fi configuration because I have a wired connection to the internet. Moving on to Express settings. These are the diagnostic data, personalized input, and your location history. You can either disable them all or enable them all. I'm going to disable them all because I don't want to give my data to Microsoft. Next is lock key settings. This controls the initial state of your caps lock, num lock, and scroll lock when you open your computer. If I was still using my old keyboard with a numpad, I would set numlock to on. This will make it easier for me to type my password on the lock screen without having to enable numlock first. But since I'm using a mini keyboard now, I'm just going to use the default lock key states and behaviors. You can ignore sticky keys if you don't know what they mean. Moving on to personalization settings. These settings are particularly useful if you want to use Windows without activation when the personalization settings page is not available. So customize them as you see fit, and let's move on. I'm going to use dark theme and enable windows and surfaces appear translucent, which is this same setting here. Customize these settings as you see fit, and let's move on. Now we'll be removing bloatware. I'm going to select all and just uncheck the ones that I really need. I'll customize this list and come back. So I kept calculator, PowerShell, which I also recommend you keep because we'll be using PowerShell later. I also kept notepad, snipping tool, sticky notes, and Windows Terminal. Everything else will be removed. You can run custom scripts. You can look at some sample scripts to see what you can do. I'm going to use the enable and activate ultimate performance power plan script. To use it, simply copy this code block and paste it based on this sentence here. So this is a .ps1 script that runs in the system context. So I'll paste it under system and as a .ps1 file. With this script, for example, it's a PS1 script that runs when the first user logs on. So you need to scroll down here under default user and paste it here as a .ps1 file. You get the point. The Windows Defender, application control, and XML markup for more components sections are for advanced users, so I'm going to skip them. Make sure you don't use this option and then download the .xml file. You can also bookmark selection to save your customizations in this website. Now we have the unattended.xml file and we have the .iso file downloaded. Now as an extra step, if you're reinstalling Windows, you can export your drivers so you don't have to install them again. There is a lot of ways that you can do that. I leave a full guide in the description. I'm going to use the dism method. Open terminal as administrator, navigate to desktop with cd desktop and then create a folder called drivers with md drivers. Now run this command. You need to change the path to folder to the path that you've chosen. I'll right click my folder and copy as path. Now you just need to wait. Nice. That didn't take too long. I'm now going to use a program called Rufus to create a bootable USB drive. These are my settings. Uncheck everything in here so that it doesn't conflict with the auto unattend file that we've created. All of these options can be set in the generator. Now that the USB is ready, I'll simply drag the auto unattend.xml file to the USB drive. That way, all of our customizations will be applied. I would also drag the drivers folder in here, but there is not enough space left on the USB drive. So I'll just save them to the D drive instead, since the only drive that's going to be wiped is the C drive. Now I'm going to back up a few things from my C drive to my D drive. The most important is your user profile folder. I'll also move my program data folder, which contains preferences and settings for third-party apps. If you don't see it, make sure hidden items are shown. For your actual apps, you can use winget to back up your installed apps so that you'll be able to reinstall them later with only one command. To do that, right-click the start menu icon and open terminal as administrator. You can use winget list to review all of your installed apps. Then use this command that I'll leave in the description to export all of your apps. Two files will be saved to your desktop. A winget.json file which contains all of the apps that can be installed through winget, and a winget node file which contains all of the apps that are not available through winget. That way you have a complete list. I'm also going to move these files to the backup folder. After I reinstall Windows, I can install all of the apps that are available through winget with this one command. Now that my data is backed up, I'm ready to install Windows. At first, I ran the setup.exe file from the USB drive, thinking that it would perform a clean install. But only after installing Windows and going through the full setup process that I realized running the setup.exe file only does an in-place upgrade, not a clean install. For that, I needed to boot from the USB. So I restarted Windows, smashed the F11 key, and selected my USB drive from the boot selection. Here, I encountered an error that I fixed by going into the BIOS and changing the boot mode from UEFI plus legacy to UEFI. When I launched into the installation process, I only had to configure language settings and partitions. The rest was completely automated. I did not have to click anything. And that's the power of auto unattend files. I did see PowerShell windows pop up throughout the installation process, and that's shenanigans applying your tweaks. So don't close them. If you set hide PowerShell windows in the form, these windows wouldn't show up. When Windows first boot up, I was pumped to see tweaks applied right away. The taskbar and start menu were clean and did not have any bloat. After that, I did a quick tour to confirm that the tweaks I set are applied. I right-clicked taskbar items to make sure end task is there. I went to the installed apps list in settings, and only the apps that I unselected have been installed. So basically, everything I've configured in the form has been applied successfully. If you encounter some settings managed by your organizations in settings, don't worry, it's normal. It's necessary to apply some tweaks. I then went on to install NVIDIA control panel from the Microsoft Store to fix my resolution. When I tried opening it, it required me to download an NVIDIA driver from the internet. So that's what I did. When the drivers installed, I opened the NVIDIA control panel, went to manage 3D settings, enabled DSR factors and set it to 4x. Also changed the DSR smoothness to 20%. Next, I went to change resolution, and under dynamic super resolution, I chose 3840 by 2160. This upscales my monitor's resolution from HD resolution to 4K, which makes UI elements and text on Windows look way better. Just see the difference for yourself. Another tweak I do on here is under adjust desktop color settings, I change the digital vibrance to 70%. You won't see it in the screen recording, but this makes the image of the monitor look way more colorful. I had some problems with the widgets board because it's displayed in Arabic even though my system language is English. I later found out that widgets follow the MSN region, not the Windows language. So I fixed it by changing the region on MSN site from United Kingdom to United States. When I tried uninstalling Edge, but it refused to do so, I was confused because I've set a European region in my settings, and as per the DMA mode, I should be able to uninstall it. To verify that DMA mode is actually enabled on my system, I installed an app called Wintoys, which allows you to enable DMA even if you're not from Europe, by the way. And I found out it was actually enabled. So I tried a few things. I disabled and enabled again the DMA mode. I restarted Windows. I updated Windows plus the Microsoft Store, and still no luck. But then out of nowhere, the widgets board got a new look with a Discover tab and a widgets tab, which made me suspect that there was an update that got applied to my system. So I tried uninstalling Edge again, and now it actually worked. I don't know why exactly, but I suspect some update from Windows or from the Microsoft Store has activated DMA mode on my system. I also went to System Components and uninstalled Microsoft Store, which if you don't know, you can actually do that starting from the 25H2 update. Keep these things in mind. Even if you uninstall it, installed Store apps will still receive updates. You can still install Store apps through the web version of the Microsoft Store, and you can reinstall the store itself through the same website. Or you can completely replace the store using Winget UI, which is like the same thing, but it supports way more apps. It allows you to install multiple apps at once, and you can update all of your apps from there. Another benefit of DMA is that you can set a different web search provider in the start menu. So rather than having to use Bing, you can follow this GitHub guide to register Google and DuckDuckGo as web search providers and use them instead. If you are from a country that is not a European country, here's how you can go back to your original region. Don't worry though, Windows only uses the region that you set at the start to confirm you are in Europe. After it's installed, you can switch back to any region or country and DMA will still work. So to go back to your original region, go to settings, time and language, language and region. Set your correct country, open administrative language settings, click copy settings and check both boxes for welcome screen and new user accounts. Click OK and now you're done. You are back to your original region with DMA mode still active. Now I'll get into reinstalling my apps. I went back to the winget.json file that I backed up. I cleaned it up with ChatGPT to only keep essential apps and used the command from Reddit to install all of the apps in the customized Winget file all at once. As an alternative, I recommend you use Winget UI. When it comes to performance, my system feels way faster. If your PC feels slow, this method is totally worth doing. At this point, I was still unsatisfied with the start menu. There is a recommended section that I never use, and when I search, I don't want to see web results. To remove both of these, I use WinUtil by Chris Titus Tech. To use it, I open a terminal as administrator, open a PowerShell tab, and I paste the command from his website. To disable them, I'll go to the Tweaks tab, turn off Bing Search in Start menu, and Recommendations in Start menu. While I'm here, I've also disabled Multiplane Overlay and Cross-Device Resume since I don't need any of them. Under the Config tab, I've disabled Search Box Web Suggestions and I've enabled Daily Registry Backup Task. To apply, click Install Features. Now onto the Updates tab, I use the Security Settings profile, which delays feature updates by 2 years and installs security updates after 4 days. This will reduce bugs and problems as much as possible while also keeping your system secure. This will work only with Windows Pro systems. That's why I've recommended that you use it from the start. Next, I took care of my backed update. I moved my documents and pictures to the new user profile and I processed the downloads folder. For app data, I only restore folders for apps that I noticed are not set up the same way they used to be. For example, with OBS Studio, I simply moved the OBS app data folder to the new user profile app data folder and all my settings are back. For further tweaking, you can use Wintoys if you've already installed it, which is especially useful for extra privacy tweaks to disable more ads and tracking features, or for full control and advanced customizations, you can use RightToolX. Don't forget to back up your auto unattended file and your Winget app list. You'll need them in the future.